Hello, class. Today we're going over chapter 6. This chapter focuses mostly on the sheets that you'll be looking at in the studio, scripting, and what a lot of the acronyms mean for scripting. And again, even like last time, if you've ever done any kind of post-production work on a regular show or in a regular video project, you're going to find some of the content pretty similar. Some of the steps would be similar. Again, the difference would be um, in terms of post production on film versus the studio. Typically, when we're working on a film production or a film, the post production we're working on is to put the content together to get it ready. While the studio, the content will typically already be made, and what we're talking about is piecing together the entire program. So it's getting it all ready to show. So that's why we need these studio managers to get it all together. So it's a lot like putting together the festival in a way, right? Making sure all the content works. So we're going to be talking about time, and we're going to be talking about more than sort of the technical aspects of how to putting it together, but why we would in a lot of ways, and what a lot of the acronyms mean for the placement of that, or where that content will live and where we get it from. And I provided for you on the slideshow itself a sheet with a lot of those acronyms. So at least it's a good place to start. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video. Let's share my screen and let's jump right into chapter 6. All right, so again, to remind you, here we are, week 6, so that's where you'll find it. It's just your download arrow. You can download that and download it, or you click on view. So for now, we're just going to view. So rundowns, scripts, and video clip information. So what's a rundown? This is a segment by segment outline of the program itself. So kind of as the name states, run down. This is what's going to happen. It's typically a chronological list. This is where we get information for video sourcing, audio sourcing, and the time of each of the segments. Again, remember, the focus is how long is this show, or how the entire show itself. And for those of you who have never done a script or know what a script is, this is the document that contains all the stories that the talent will be reading. If we're doing a multi-camera production, typically the script will have 2 columns. It's formatted with the 2 columns. Production information is on the left, and what is being said will be on the right, typically. This allows the staff to see what the talent or the anchor is saying, but also what the viewer is watching. Pre-recorded clips are a common part of most productions. I think we're going to be seeing that more and more. And the content is anything. I mean, this is just what is news in the area. So like I said, it could be a traffic jam, could be a sporting event. And of course, as we know, in LA, usually there's a lot of exciting things happening typically in the area. Now, information for each clip has to be made available for the crew, especially where is the clip, we don't want people to be looking for things. So, that's typically already set up when we're doing the rundown. We know where it is. So which machine is holding the clip, and who's going to play it? What's the name of the clip? Is it a file name or a number? How long is it? And what type? So is it a VO, SOT, or PKG? We're going to talk more about those acronyms in a second, like, voiceover, sound on tape, et cetera, et cetera. And do they require any other supplemental information in terms of graphics? So let's talk specifically about what rundowns mean. So again, this is the running order. This is the program itself, and what the segments are and in what order they're going to be playing in. So we get the segment number identifier, the RUN, the primary video source for the segment, which is VID, the video clip location, and also if a roll-in is associated with the segment, which would be L. So if we need something that also plays along with the video clip, the primary audio source for the segment, which would be AUD, segment or story slugs. Remember, we had this acronym already, or this short abbreviation, SLUG or slug, and the amount of time the segment is expected to run, which is SEG. The entire program is in TRT, which is total running time, right? So that's the complete length of the program. itself. Segment number. So the run number is the number itself that identifies the segment to a specific and individual specific clip to the television program. That's the run number. It's very unique. It's specific, so it's not something that will be confused with something else. So as example here in the book, we have this one. The segment is identified by these three characters: 100, 200, 300, 400 in terms of a series number. The number can indicate the day of the week. It can indicate many different things, or just a chronological number in terms of how many of these have been produced. It all depends on the studio. A block itself will be a section of the program. These are the programs that occur. That's actually the actual program itself. Um, so whether it's the sports block, the weather block, etc., or the top of the hour block or the ending block, this is the actual program. We don't count the commercial breaks, right? Typically, a half-hour news program, you have 4 blocks: top of the news, weather, sports, and then the end, or something that's local, something like that. Here is an example. Again, I know this looks very 90s or 2000s. A lot of this has been updated, but this is a screen grab of the way Avid works and the way it handles the information, um, including length of time. Here's another example of how we see another sheet video or vid one. Um, Here's as an example, the second column on the rundown here on the vid indicates whether it's primary or dominant video source for the segment. So here are the 6 types of video identified by different acronyms or initials. So here's the vid right here. And here we can see the OC, PKG, VO, all the different acronyms, SOT. We'll discuss those in a second. And it goes also, and here is also the time, the runtime, where the audio source is. Again, this is part of the slug. What kind of video information goes along with it, segment length, and total run here. So we can see that starting off goes up to 20 seconds, 130, 1 minute 45, etc. And here's the entire program itself at 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's keep talking about video sources. So OC, we saw this up here. We're talking about on camera. This is typically where, especially if we're watching a news show, where your talent is just reading the story. There's no video clip associated with it. It's just typically reporting. You might have graphics associated with it, but nothing else beyond just the talent themselves in terms of other video. Now let's talk about other types of pre-recorded clips. So here's our VO, VOST, PKG. VO is voiceover. So this is the type of story format that features your talent narrating over the video, right? I'm sure you've all seen that. And sometimes that starts with that lead-in. We mentioned that at a couple lectures back. Your anchor or your talent will begin the lead-in story, and then it will cut to the story itself while their voiceover continues. So that's what this means. If we have a tag, this is when the talent provides the on-camera closing comment following the pre-recorded segment. This is very common. And usually you get the types of information, supplemental information. For example, like if it's about a specific business or the location of an area, or a business, or any kind of a specific area. This is where at the tag where you will get the actual address, or if, for example, if they do reveal the location, sometimes they will tell you in the tag whether or not you're allowed to show up or not, or dangers involved, et cetera, et cetera. It's again supplemental, more information. With this type of recorded clips, we're in terms of this last definition, which is the NAT or the Atmos. Specifically, this is typically the production definition here for NAT sound or Atmos sound. This is usually the responsibility of the camera operator or the sound operator on location, because this is going to be audio from the clip that is without the narration. Sometimes you also use this for background sound. Natural sound is anything on location. So, especially if you're somewhere out in the field, this is the nature sounds that you get, for example, like trees, rustling in the wind, birds chirping, insects making sounds, dogs barking, children playing, etc., etc. So and sometimes you can collect these, and you can use them as part of those segments that you are shooting as live, as we discussed in chapter 5 as an example, where it appears to be live, or we report it as if it's live, but it's not, and you can use sometimes some of this in your library to supplement or to reinforce the notion that this is a live event. The VOSOT is also voiceover, but the SOT is sound on tape. This is the story format. uh, Again, where as I mentioned earlier, this is we got this definition before. This is the anchor or the talent, where they begin the narration, um, but instead of continuing their voiceover, the audio is cut to whatever audio is on the clip itself. Now, many times, if we're doing the sound on tape, though, that's the pre-edited soundbite, which comes sourced from the tape itself. So your anchor or your talent is not responsible for continuing that. So if you see that, you'll know that they won't be speaking. So if there's something going on with like their headphone or their headset or their microphone, this could be an opportunity to fix something. And anytime we see that SOT, this is telling us that the audio itself is containing all the audio information or all the channels of audio. Continuing with video source. Whenever we see PKG, this is referring to a package, and this is any time that the clips themselves that are being prepared are already finished. They've already been prepared in their own sort of mini post-production environment, and they usually will have their own beginning, middle, and end. They can be introduced, but these will come in usually as a little story already. And this is, sometimes produced by a specific team by the studio itself. And again, they're ready to go. Here are uh, more abbreviations. So this would be a good one to keep. So and especially if you're interested in working, but you want to memorize this kind of stuff. And this is good to have. You will probably be getting some of this stuff in terms of where the voiceover and on camera. You probably will see a little bit of that, and whether or not you need the CG stuff or the FX stuff. So this is good to have. This is good to at least keep as a resource. So I provided this for y'all. Here are other acronyms for other types of videos. So remember, anytime we see the word key, that's going to stand for any type of video layer. Typically, that's going to be supplemental information regarding whatever the story will be. This will be the data or the graphic that will appear over the shoulder of the talent. Now, we also will use this for sports and for weather. Anytime you see REM sat or live, or the words live inject, this is going to mean that they're going to place a live shot inside. Typically coming from the microwave or satellite, because remember, if you recall, those were more robust ways of getting the live or on the scene types of shoots, uh, or to ensure that those shoots are transmitted back to the studio. Remember, as we were talking about earlier with internet or cellular, that's not always reliable. So those are usually the types of shows that will be produced already in post-production while on the set with an independent production team, and you will just receive the package. Anytime we see DVE, again, as a reminder, that's digital video effects. These are multiple video sources that can be assigned to the special effects box or the switcher. Now, this is also when two cameras are assigned to a DVE. These can create that split screen effect that we mentioned a few classes or a few chapters ago. And this will be that sort of CNN effect, right? That headline news effect that we were talking about the other day in reference to like the election as an example, where it seems like you have multiple people speaking to each other. And anytime you see MC, that stands for master control. This is also referring to the transmission control or the studio control. This is the indicated as the primary video source on the rundown. it means that the video will be handled remotely within the control room. This could be an independent clip. This could also be a PKG. So it could be one or the other. It just means that it's going to be processed in the control. Now, anytime we see L, that's location. This is the actual physical location of the clip. This can refer to the server where it resides, or the machine or the computer where it resides. When we have more than one playback device that's being utilized, remember that those will typically have letter designations with them. Sometimes they have numbers, but they are typically chronological, and they'll be easy to remember. The location column is usually used to identify which specific playback device will hold the clip. Remember, and they are going to be DDR-A, DDR-B, or if they're numbers, again, like what we see here, DDR-1023 or 4092. Again, it's all going to depend at the station. It's not uncommon though, for that the one machine now, like I think we have an iMac in the studio that has all the content or all the pre-recorded clips, so you may not have all those designations. So in that case, the clips are always going to be coming from that same machine, and the location column is typically repurposed. Instead of saying machine, it's just going to give you the file name of the clip itself. So you don't have to worry about running around like, well, don't we have an A or a B machine? No, it's just all the one machine. Now, one thing that I know we've been using is our hard drives, and we have our own protocols in our program, but we are focusing on whether those hard drives live in the rooms. Those could have changed due to the last year, and again because of the fact that we've been doing so much remote work, we might have had to change that around. But for the most part, it's just talking about the location of the clips themselves, and this is quickly determined by asking. Ask the media specialist. In our case, that would be Sam, or anyone who's working in the studio itself. AUD for audio. This column indicates the primary dominant audio source that is in play for the segment. Similar to the video column, we have also acronyms, initials, to identify specific devices or protocols, locations, and numbers of video sources. So that's an et cetera, et cetera. Anytime we see MIC, that's Mike. And sometimes we even have that with a number or letter designation to indicate which one are we using. And these designations will change, and you'll probably see that a little bit different whether you're going to our cage or whether you're going to the studio itself. Now, slug or item, this is the nickname to a segment of a program, a section. This can also just tell us what's happening, so we also mentioned this can also be block. Timing or seg and TRT, again, this segment, this is to show the producer their estimate to how long the entire section will take itself. This is typically called Seg Time, which can be inclusive of the talents introductions as well. So it takes all of it into account. Remember, we have to know all of that as well. It all takes time. Remember, this is a time-based media art form. We have to know how long the show is, because we need to make sure that we have a complete understanding of when it's going to start, when it's going to end, because we got 24-hour cycles here that never stop. So we need to know, or we need to make sure that we have our programming on point. Also, as part of that time will be the video clips and tags. So here's an example. If the video clip is associated with the segment, if it's 15 seconds long, you add that. You have to add the intro time and the tag time, and all that together will include, that'll be your SEG time, your seg time. Clip time itself is the exact or precise length of the clip. So here's a good example down here of how that can work. If the intro is 5 and the clip is 15, the tag is 10, you add all that up. So 10 plus 15 plus 5 is 30. And this is the number that you're going to see here. TRT, then total running time, um, is the entire length of the thing, and it's either additive or subtractive. If it's additive, it begins in 0, and you just add the segment time to each line. I think that's the easier way, at least when you're starting off, way to think about it, because we start from nothing and we end with something. And again, this becomes a preference thing. Sometimes some people want to do the subtractive one, where you say, well, the whole thing is 2950 or 2929, and we're going to take away from the time as the segments play in sequence. So as an example, you subtract, if you, for example, if you're at 30, you start with 30, you subtract 10, you get 2950, subtract 130, you get 2020, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it can be confusing if you're not used to the way time works, because you are taking into account seconds and minutes. We're not really looking at frames, because we're not talking specifically about um, those particular sections. It goes by so fast, we don't have to worry about it. We just have to worry about seconds. So you post-production people looking at that going, wait a minute, where are the frames? Not necessary when it comes to studio, at least when you're talking about segment time. When we're producing, that's something different. Now here's the scripting. This is the production function, the writing itself. This is the blueprint. This is the game plan. This is what we'll be relying on when the show starts. This is what the director will use typically to queue up the program and when he gives out his commands. Typical format for news is to have a 2-column script. On the first column, usually on the left, you get the production information. And the right side is where you have the actual script itself, what the talent will be saying, and or when they'll be saying it at the very least, if you have a shortened version. In terms of the organization protocol of the script, you usually follow however the rundown looks, or uh, what that rundown will look like, or how it appears. Just follow that. Now, as the new show is created, not only is the script being written, at the same time, the producing staff is visualizing it as well. It's not only are we going to be visualizing what the viewer will hear, but also what they see. So your script in your studio needs to reflect what we're watching, what we're seeing. While if we're talking about a film, we get usually some notes in terms of what we're seeing, but that is the job of the director with the cinematographer and the art director typically. So it's a little bit different. In terms of video clip information, um, one of the first items to consider is with what story or segment the clip will be associated with. What is the precise length of the clip? We don't want any sort of assumptions here. We need to know, right? We need to know this is exact at this point. What kind of audio itself is on the clip? Is it usable too? I mean, that's also something that we need to know, because if you went on the field and captured something, then you come back and you want to play and you realize it's no good, well, you'll probably have to do a talent voiceover. Do graphics need to be created? Do they need to be layered? Um, and if so, what will the graphic be? How long will the graphic be displayed? What is the nature of the graphic being displayed? Where is it being displayed? All those kinds of things need to be considered. And also, what kind of story form is the clip? Is it the voiceover? Does it have sound on tape, right, as we mentioned earlier? Is it completely produced? Is it a package? Also, if the clip is a physical piece of media, you know, what kind of media is it, and where on that media is it located on? And this could be DVD, and this could be VHS. Less and less we're seeing 8mm and 16mm, but that was not uncommon to have different stations produce work uh, on film, especially through the 80s and early 90s. Um, in fact, I know I was privileged to be at a library conference once, and one of the librarians was going on talking about working in a station, and having access to all of these films that the station produced specifically in the 70s and 80s. And it was fascinating because a lot of this stuff that was being produced uh, was uh, was by the TV station, but they were shooting it on 16 millimeter film. So they had this sort of treasure trove archive of package of PKGs that were just sitting there. I mean, and this stuff could have been put together and edited together into an interesting kind of documentary film if they had a savvy producer coupled with someone who had the rights to the content. This could have been something that was really interesting. So you never know what you're going to find or what you're going to get. Now, as we near the end of this particular lecture here, let's talk about a font sheet or a clip sheet. These documents contain information regarding the clips themselves, and this will be duration, audio characteristics, what's the story or story type, and graphic requirements. And here's what they can look like here. So we have, when we're looking at these sheets, the font sheet, then we have the top, the middle, and the bottom. And you can see we have everything from the run numbers, the dates, what's the slug, who's the producer, um, and then we have also the type, right? We talked about VO, VOSOT, and we can see that this can also be moved around, and you circle one of these. What's the segment, right? The exact time. Is there an out cue? What is it? And what is the out cue? And then here we also have the organization of it. So let's talk about each aspect of that font sheet. So we'll start with here, we have drive number. So there you go. This is the identifying number assigned to the specific computer drive or memory device itself. Like, is it the memory? Is it on a hard drive? Is it a flash drive? Is it a USB stick? I mean, typically you're going to find now that it's going to be a hard drive of some kind, or it could also be an SSD, depending on the technology that the studio has been implementing. I know I've been seeing some of this more and more. Now, these numbers can contain 4 or more digits, something like this. And again, this is all reflecting the logistics of the station. What is their protocol? So you just follow it. We'll have a cut number. This is when multiple clips are located on an individual piece of media. This refers to the clips, the identification, the position, or location. So where is it? So you might have here a frame number as well as second and time. And again, let's go back. So here's our cut number here. If we have NAT or Atmos, so again, natural sound or atmosphere, this is referring to that video clip and the audio on that specifically. So let's see it. And sometimes we see it up here. There it is. Is it on channel 1 or channel 2? Typically, these are all recording with stereo. We usually save the mono recordings for field productions on a film show. And pad is padding is anytime you need to have extra material edited to the remaining tail of a video clip. Maybe you play a segment from the day before or something that didn't make last week's shows, so you use it to pad or add extra time. Let's talk about the middle of the font sheet. This is redundant to some extent with portions of the rundown, which was already produced via scripting. Seg time refers to the segment within the clip. So if the clip is a VO and only a VO, one would expect the time to be indicated to the right of that VO indicator here. So there we go. If the clip is a PKG, one would expect the time to be indicated to the right, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on what that clip will be, whether it's VO package with sound on tape or not, that's just, again, giving the person or the crew indications of the length and the time. As an example here, if something is a VO with a sound on tape, the specific length of the voiceover portion and the exact time of the sound on tape also needs to be conveyed, like what is what, right? So where if we're talking here, If it's all one, we do the whole thing. But if it's the voiceover and then the SOT, we indicate exactly what is the length of each one. It's important because again, we have to know exactly the numbers that we're dealing with. So it is an exact science. I've said that I think multiple times that we need to know exactly what the time is. Continue with the middle, we see that out cue, also as a standard out cue. This is the last thing that's seen or heard on the pre-recorded clip itself. The space to indicate an out cue applies primarily to pre-produced work or packages, or the VOSOT or variations that end in a sound on tape. So it's not uncommon to see the word STD or standard written in as an out cue. Now, this could also be a signature, whenever this is the way that the person will end the show to, as part of the, in many ways, the brand or the identifying brand, as part of what is the show, reminding people who they are and what the show is. So here's an example. Um, when you end the pre-recorded clip by the reporter, usually it's like, "Hi, I'm Barney Rubble, Palo Alto News 9." So you usually again reiterate who you are and what the brand is. Think of it also as people have adopted that on YouTube, right? When people say, they say what they are, they remind people to like their video clip, to subscribe, to Patreon, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing even amateur producers borrow these cues because they work. This is again, it's like mentioned on the last lecture. The more that your viewers will see and hear something, and or it's repeated, the more they will tend to agree with it or tend to follow it. Now we'll end with the bottom of the clip sheet. This is going to be referring to graphics. So if the clip requires any graphics, what is it? How long is it going to be placed? Again, getting the exact numbers, so that if you're going to, when you pass this on to graphics, they will know exactly what they're doing. They will be producing this on their NLE typically, right? Their nonlinear editing software. So their Premiere, their Final Cut, their Motion, their After Effects. Remember, because we need to have it ready to go. So it's all going to be pre-edited, pre-generated, just ready to go in the bag. Because on the studio, you're not creating, remember, necessarily, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's like you're putting the program together, so everything's ready to go. It in many ways, I like to think of all of it as a PKG, right? It's all there, and we're just figuring out where it's going to go. So the PKGs are like the puzzle pieces, right? And your show itself is the puzzle, and the time segments of each one are sort of like the cutouts of the puzzles, right? And they're all going to fit in nicely together. That's just the way I like to think of it. But again, I'm coming from the world of not live studio production. I'm coming from the world of a field production or film production, and in that world, we also do something similar, like a puzzle piece, but we do not have the urgency of fitting everything in a certain section and then being done with it. We have our luxury is we have more time, right? We have padding in a way, if you will. Our show can take several months to be produced, while if you're in a studio environment, your show needs to happen right then and there live. So you have zero room for error. And that's typically the main difference between the two. One is very instant and the other one is not. So after 6 chapters of all this, I hope you're starting to see how the patterns are laid out with one or the other. Um, we have one more chapter to go, and we'll be talking about direction and the roles and responsibilities of the director and the assistant director. But keep in mind, if you haven't already noticed, especially if you've been on sets and done some of the work, they're pretty similar to what you're seeing on the studio. Again, the main difference is there's an urgency of now with the live stuff. You probably are going to be more and more people, I think, are getting more comfortable with this because of the social media experience. If you've ever done a live um, Patreon or done a Facebook live or an Instagram live, I mean that's pretty much like being live on location. So you can use that or think of that as practice for your professional career if you decide you want to do studio work. All right, everyone. So just a reminder, do the lab this week. Be sure to fill out your reports in terms of what you did. Continue that work. Remind you know. I want to remind you to continuously tell me what it is you're doing, and again, if as you're signing up for your different positions, take different positions on to get a sense of what they do. But I would encourage you to do that because you never know. Like if you say like, "Oh, this first week I did sound, I like it, and I'm done." You never know. So again, do multiple positions, try to get them all. Um, and if that's your experience, that's your experience. I mean, at least you'll know. And then this way you can start, you have a better idea of what you want to do or what you want to focus on for the any future productions or any future classes that you take with us at Valley, or if you transfer out, right? Or maybe get an internship. So this way you at least know. So do them all, please. And again, reminder: do the discussion posts if one is posted. Uh, you if you skip one or two, sometimes you have to. It won't hurt you too much. But if you spend the entire semester without making any posts, it will hurt your grade. And it pretty much eliminates you from getting an A of any kind, because that is 10% of your grade, as a reminder. As usual, please contact me if you have any questions on anything we discussed today. And as always before, meet me on Thursdays for office hour if you have questions. And again, talk to Sam if you have questions. And if you see Professor Cooney around, he can also help you out. So have a good one. And as always, break a leg, and have a productive week.